"We are pregnant." The surprised men cried all at once. "Is it because of what we did to that maiden?" one of them asked. Their faces became grave with fear. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, in a tiny kingdom called Nze, dwelt two lovers called Chima and Amarachi. Chima loved Amarachi with all his heart and did everything to make her happy. She was his best friend and companion. Amarachi, on the other hand, had undying love for Chima. Her life got more exciting after she met him. He was her soulmate. Amarachi was a very beautiful maiden. She had a kind heart and a warm smile that could light up everywhere she went. All the women in the market loved her and used her to set an example for their daughters. She had a very kind and accommodating personality. The children loved her because she always played with them and told them stories. Chima and Amarachi were very happy. They did everything together. Chima loved painting pots, while Amarachi loved swimming in the village river. They would engage in their hobbies together, go out together, play and eat together. Chima was very excited to have her around. He didn't want to take chances or lose her. He decided to marry her at once, but he was yet to introduce her to his aging parents living in Ameze. After supper one night, he pleaded with Amarachi to escort him to his parents' house in Ameze. Amarachi was reluctant. Ameze was quite a far distance from her hometown Nze, but because of the love she had for him, she agreed to accompany him to meet his parents. They began their journey the next day and arrived in Ameze the third night. Ameze was a peaceful and quiet village. It was a place where everyone knew each other, a place where rules and laws thrived. The people of Ameze loved their king, but they worshipped their chief priest. He was a god in their eyes. Their chief priest Ilonze was famous within Ameze and beyond because he was a great seer. All his prophecies always come to pass. He could see events even before they happen. The people revered him. The villagers would drop livestock, yams and other farm produce in front of his hut. He was the only one they listened to. Ilonze was powerful, but he was cunning. 3 nights after Chima and Amarachi had arrived in Ameze, the people began to take notice of Amarachi and her closeness with Chima. Chima was an indigene of Ameze, but Amarachi, on the other hand, came from a faraway village called Nze, which was their former settlement she had left to accompany Chima. In no due time, the market women grew accustomed to Amarachi. They loved her gentle spirit and her kind heart. She possessed an immense amount of beauty and carried herself with grace and charm. She was never proud or boastful. All was going well. One day, Ilonze, the chief priest, was heading for a meeting when he saw Amarachi walking on the road. But this time, she was not in the company of Chima. Chima had followed his father to the river to help him fish. The chief priest was struck by her beauty and charm. He immediately wanted her for himself. He wondered who she was. The next time he saw her walking alone, he decided to talk to her. "Hello, pretty lady. How are you?" he asked. "I'm fine," Amarachi replied politely with a smile. He went ahead to declare his interest in her, but Amarachi turned him down politely. She told him she was getting married to Chima in a few weeks. Though undeterred, he let her be. Days after that, the chief priest began to bother Amarachi, but she was firm in her decision. She was never going to leave Chima for an old man, but the chief priest wouldn't back down. Amarachi decided not to tell Chima about the chief priest. She didn't want to cause any trouble. Besides, the chief priest was someone the people worshipped. No one was going to believe a stranger over him. The chief priest was filled with lust for Amarachi. He dreamed about her every day and night. Getting turned down by Amarachi angered him. He felt insulted. In that regard, he decided to deal with her. If he could not have her, he was going to make sure no one else could have her. The next morning, The chief priest assembled the villagers and spoke to them. "I had a dream last night," he began. "The gods revealed to me that the entire village is going to be wiped out." The villagers gasped in terror and shock. "We have a witch in our midst," he continued. "She will cause us harm if we do not get rid of her. Who is this witch? Let us burn her down immediately." The scared and angry villagers chorused. Raising his hand, he slowly pointed at Amarachi. A surprised gasp erupted from the crowd. Amarachi was shocked and speechless. Chima could not believe his eyes or ears. "You must be mistaken," he protested. "Is this because I did not give in to your advances?" The angry Amarachi revealed to the shocked crowd. "Silly girl, those were no advances. You are young enough to be my daughter. I was only trying to get close enough to unravel your witchcraft and save our village." "How dare you accuse the eyes of the gods? Abomination!" one of the villagers cried. "Kill her! Burn the witch!" they chanted. Chima was having an out-of-body experience. He could not believe his eyes and ears. Everything seemed to be happening in a distance. On seeing no one else believed her, Amarachi burst into tears. She would be buried alive, the chief priest declared. Alarmed, Chima dragged Amarachi by hand and tried to run, but the men restrained him and dragged her away. They made him lose consciousness and tied him up all night. The next morning, the men dug a grave near the market and buried the pleading Amarachi, while the women watched helplessly with tears in their eyes. By the time Chima regained consciousness in the morning, Amarachi was dead. Chima screamed in agony. The pain was too excruciating for him to bear. He blamed himself for bringing her to his hometown filled with religious fanatics. He blamed himself for living in Ze. His life would lose its meaning without Amarachi. Chima would sit by Amarachi's grave, crying day and night. He despised his village and decided to leave. But he was reluctant to leave Amarachi in her lonely grave all by herself. Everyone who knew them began to feel pity for him. The chief priest was happy he had dealt with Amarachi. If only she had not messed with him. At least no one gets to have her now. He celebrated and made merry in his hut. A few days later, all the men in the land woke up pregnant except Chima. It started with a subtle swelling, then a full-blown pregnancy with a baby kicking aggressively. They were shocked. They began to contemplate if they had done the right thing by killing Amarachi, but it was out of question. Their chief priest could never be wrong. He was the messenger of the gods. The gods will never ask them to kill someone unjustly. Anytime each of the men went into labor, he would die immediately. All the men began to die one by one, beginning with the men who had dug the grave. The other men were scared. Strange things began to happen. All the rivers in the land dried up. All the crops and livestock started dying. The confused villagers ran to the chief priest for answers, but he had none to give them. The misfortunes didn't stop there. Things went from bad to worse. Chima was the only happy person in the village. He was hoping Amarachi was taking revenge and she would destroy the village and make them pay for ending their love. The villagers sent some women to seek help from an oracle in a neighboring village because the men could hardly walk. Their stomachs were heavy. The chief priest's stomach looked like it would explode anytime soon. The pain was excruciating. He laid on his bed wasting away, while Amarachi tormented him. He would cry and scream her name, pleading for mercy and pleading for death, but it was far away from him. His swelling tummy was so unbearable that he was forced to confess. The villagers were shocked to learn how evil he was. In rage, Chima grabbed him and rendered multiple blows on his face. But even that was not enough to quell his anger. The evil chief priest died shortly after. They threw his corpse in an evil forest for the vultures to feed on. The women they had sent to seek help returned with a message from the oracle. The oracle said that only Chima could beg Amarachi and break the curse, but Chima refused to help them. As long as he was concerned, Amarachi was free to kill them all. They begged and pleaded, reminding him that some innocent old men who had no idea of what had happened, including his father, was pregnant. But he sent them away. After pleading with him for months, Chima reluctantly agreed to help. That night, the villagers went to Amarachi's grave and invoked her spirit and offered sacrifices. Amarachi's ghost emerged. She was very angry when she saw them. She levitated in fury and was about to kill them all when she heard Chima's gentle voice. "Amarachi!" he called out in anguish. This was the longest they had ever been apart. Descending slowly, she went close to him. "Chima," she whispered softly like the wind, with tears in her eyes. "It's all my fault. Punish me instead. I never should have let you leave your village. I never should have asked you to come with me. I'm sorry." "No, my love, it is not your fault. Your people worshipped the chief priest instead of the gods. They were too blind to see. I was pregnant. I was going to tell you before everything happened. That's why I gave my killers my baby to carry for me." Chima cried. He was heartbroken. He had lost 2 people that night, not 1. "Amarachi, inasmuch as I want you to wipe out the entire village, and I want to kill them with my bare hands, I also want your soul to be at peace. I want you to release the burdens of this world and relax in a happier place. I'll be leaving tomorrow to stay with your parents. I cease to be from this village. Rest well, my love, till we meet again. I want to come along. Take my body with you. Bury me in Nze. I don't like this place. I'll wipe out this village if I stay here any longer," she pleaded. "I will," he promised. "Goodbye, Chima. Be happy and forget about me. Goodbye, Amarachi. I love you," he said. Slowly, she floated away. Chima cried and screamed as he watched her disappear for the final time. The villagers wished they had not been so foolish. Nothing could atone for what they had done to Chima and Amarachi. The pregnancy pains ceased. The crops and the rivers were back to normal, but the men's bellies were still big. They felt throwing Ilonze's corpse for the vultures and wild animals to feed on was still not enough to atone for what the evil man had done. Chima denounced his village. He left and never returned. Like he promised, he took Amarachi's body back to Nze and buried her properly. Her parents were inconsolable. He made sure not to tell them she was buried alive. That would only break their heart. Chima managed to move on and start his own family after 12 years. The people of Ameze learned to stop worshipping their chief priest and stop swallowing whatever anyone in authority says without asking logical questions. They were very sorry for what they did to Amarachi and Chima. Their hearts were heavy with guilt. Amarachi had placed a curse on the people of Ameze. All their male babies will have big stomachs going forward. Till date, all the men of Ameze have big protruding bellies. What did you learn from the story? People tend to worship men instead of God. Just like the people of Ameze, they worshipped their chief priest instead of the gods themselves and believed everything that comes out of the chief priest's mouth. He manipulated them to do his own personal bidding in the end. If you liked this story, like and subscribe for more like this from my channel, The Storyteller, because trust me, you love them. See you next time. Bye. Can't wait to see you in my next video.